CASA that will benefit ultimately the entire network. The first is the funding of a permanent management conservative, actually the expansion of a pilot that we started with grant funds we received last year. We want to take these children who have languished in the back end of the system and focus volunteers on them and services on them to bring them to the forefront, find them family, and build them a support network so that if they're unable to be adopted, they're at least able to go home to responsible family as opposed to running home to the dysfunctional one they left. So we're working on that. We're working on expanding that pilot and then taking that program statewide. We're working on a marketing campaign because one of the problems with CASA, and somebody noted it earlier, we don't have the brand recognition that we need. Everyone in the CASA community recognizes the little guy with the heart. But if you're not from the CASA community, you don't know what that means. But if I said Big Brothers, Big Sisters, if I said Red Cross, if I said Blue Cross, Blue Shield, you would all say yes, yes, and yes. Well, we need that yes in the public's mind for CASA. And so this year we started working with a marketing firm to begin to run focus groups across the state with individuals who don't know CASA to find out from them what resonates, what will bring them in the door to become a CASA volunteer. So we're starting that this year with the intention of, in the next 3 years, blitzing the state with a CASA marketing campaign so that people will know what CASA means. And they won't have to ask you, what does that mean when you're wearing it? They're going to say, oh, are you one too? That's going to be a beautiful day. So we're working for that day. We're also working in order to support that. We've taken one of our staff members and made them focus on recruitment and retention. So they're going to be out there, them, and we also hired a consultant to work with us to work with that staff member, to work with programs across the state. I'm happy to say you have outstanding leadership here. Your numbers keep growing nicely, so you're probably not going to see that person. But there are other counties and other programs across the state that need that level of assistance, and so while we're working on the marketing campaign, we're strengthening programs that know how to bring in, and we talk about the 3 R's, recruit, retain, and re-engage volunteers. So we're working on that as well as working on what people call family finding. Some of you might have gone to the Kevin Campbell training. He's like the guru of family finding, or finding family for children. There are often children in the Child Protective Services system, and people say, well, we can't find their family. Well, the family's all over the place because nobody showed up from Mars in a beam. Everybody has family. Everybody's connected to somebody. So we now have funding to allow us to be able to, working in 2 areas of the state, begin this program of family finding. We'll put together a toolkit and give that to programs across the state as well, so every child, every program will have access to that information. Our goal is your goal, that every child in the Child Protective Services system have a CASA volunteer. Now, the Texas CASA slogan used to be a CASA volunteer for every child who needs one. When I got there, it's like we're cutting off the last part of that sentence, because it is very evident to me that every child needs a CASA volunteer. Because sometimes you say, well, we're just moving the kid from Harriet's house, Harriet the abuser, into Aunt Stephanie's house, and we all know Aunt Stephanie's upholding, a citizen who upholds the virtues of our community. She's great, we all know Aunt Stephanie, it's no big deal, we're just gonna make that movement. Well, nobody's ever looked behind the curtain of Aunt Stephanie before. And until you look, you don't know who Aunt Stephanie is, but you're taking a child and putting it over there. That doesn't make sense. So a CASA volunteer is needed for every child to assure that the right things are happening for that child, which is why your work is so important as CASA volunteers and the people who stand with the CASA volunteers. But again, I'm talking about the community and what the community is doing. So the other part of the community is National CASA. I serve on the National CASA board. I'm on the executive committee of the National CASA board. And we're doing significant reform up there because National CASA really had no value as far as I thought when I got there, because they were dysfunctioning, and now we're really revamping that. But there are 949 CASA programs across the United States. So we have 72 in Texas. There's a total of 949 across the United States. Interestingly enough, because we are Texas, and we do things better in Texas, and we are stronger in Texas, than people give us credit for. We're stronger than they even can imagine. So when you look at the numbers of children served nationally in 2014, and the number of children served in Texas, and I'm going to give you those numbers in a second, you will see that Texas provided more than 10% of the total number of volunteers in the CASA network in 2014, and right at, or just under 10% of the total number of children served in the United States in 2014. So the national number of volunteers was 76,000. In Texas in 2014, we had 8,066 volunteers, more than 10%. Nationally, 251,000 children were provided with a CASA volunteer. In Texas, that number was 24,742, just under 10%. So we're kicking butt in Texas. You all are kicking butt in Texas. So again, yes. So it does take a village, and we're part of a national connection, and we've got the national network. It takes a village. We know that. CASA in Texas is a very strong village. CASA here, very, very strong. I salute you and I applaud you for the strength of your community and the strength of your commitment and the changes that you're making, not only today, but that will roll into tomorrow and tomorrow's tomorrow. So I thank you for that. There's another expression that says, children are the message that we send forward to a future that we might never see. How true is that? I was having a conversation with David Gary on the way in, who runs another nonprofit, and we were talking about CASA and why do you do this and what is the difference. And I said, if you ever speak to someone who does not understand the difference CASA makes, because everybody's asking, what's in it for me? This isn't my issue. I don't have any relation to it. There's nothing in it for me. Oh yes, there is something in it for everybody. What is the difference? Well, these children are the message that we're sending forward to a future that we might never see. Currently, CASA volunteers in Texas serve about 53% of the children in the Child Protective Services system. If on any given day, the approximate number of total children in the system is 47,000, take that number, multiply it, send it forward, and imagine all of those children not receiving the services that a CASA volunteer provides them, not receiving that love, not receiving that attention, not receiving that life-affirming feeling. Imagine those children out there angry because of everything that didn't happen. And we already know that their dropout rate is higher if they don't have a CASA volunteer. We know that their rate of homelessness is higher. We know that their level of induction into the juvenile justice and criminal justice system is higher. We know that their pregnancy rate is higher. We know substance abuse and mental health is higher. So imagine all that in that future that you'll never see when you're an old person walking down the street and one of them is walking behind you. What is the difference of a CASA volunteer? You are changing the future of Texas for the better. You are making everybody safer. You are changing that young person's life. You're breaking a cycle. You're creating hope and changing the future of Texas for the betterment of everyone. People don't think about that. So when somebody says, not my issue, yes it is. And if you can't be a volunteer, write me a check. Winnie the Pooh said to Christopher Robin, because I like to quote the great scholars, in one of the stories, no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. What you do as volunteers, thank you doesn't even begin to sum up what we owe you. So I won't say thank you because it just doesn't get to it. So what I did was I took the word volunteer and looked at it as an acronym. So if you will, I'd like to say how I broke down volunteer. The V stands for valor. And when you look up the dictionary definition, it says courage or bravery. Strength of mind or spirit that enables a person to encounter danger with firmness. And the greatest aspect of valor is courage. because it takes courage to care, to get beyond yourself to care about somebody else. It takes courage to love. It takes courage or valor to get involved in somebody else's life and give up your time and the things that are competing interests of yours to dedicate yourself to someone else who really does need you, who doesn't have the wherewithal and skill set to do it themselves. It takes valor, it takes courage to show up, speak up, and then learn. Because nobody showed up, we all know how to speak up for somebody, but we don't know, there are ins and outs you have to learn to be a CASA volunteer, thus the required training. So you're saying, not only am I here to help, I'm actually going to sit here and let you teach me something else. And so I thank you for your valor. The O is for open hearts, open hands, because it takes all of that. The open hand is a loving hand. It says, come, I'm here. The open hand hugs. The open hand touches. The open hand just transmits caring just by touch. Affirming touch. The open heart allows and creates the open hand. And so the O is for open. I will also say, because Barb was so good about letting me know those stats about how many miles, how many court reports, how many this, how many that you visit, that's probably the part of being a volunteer you hate the most. Let me tell you why. Another part of the O is organization. Because what we do at Texas CASA is take all that information that Barb gave, put a dollar value on it, take the legislature and show them what a great investment they're making by supporting CASA programs across the state. So even though you hate keeping up with that data, please keep up with it because it makes a difference. When Barbara's asking for it, she sends it to us, we pass it forward so the legislature will understand. So, but the real O is for open heart. I just wanted to throw that organization thing in. I gotta support Barbara and what she's doing too. The L is for listening. It's for looking for what is in the best interest of the child. It's for love. It's for all those things because you do listen. You're not only listening to what the child says they want because they don't always know what they want. You're listening. You're listening for what's being said and the underlying message. You're listening to all those people that say whatever it is they're going to say on behalf of the child. The parents with their agenda, the cousins with their agenda, everybody's got something, and then you find the person who's gold. And it may be the parent, because they finally see the light of day and they're working on getting the child back, and so you see the gold. Or you, by listening, you find out there's somebody else that nobody's even spoken to, because everybody just knows that Aunt Sarah's in the background, she's always been there, she's like the Rock of Gibraltar, but she's not listed anymore, because she's not a blood aunt, so nobody knows she exists. But in listening, you find out who that person is. Listening is critical, the looking out for what's in the best interest is critical, and the love, well, of course, what needs to be said about love. Someone once said that volunteers are love in motion. There you have it. The U, and the U I really took some liberties with. It starts with until, right? So until child abuse ends, there will always be a need for CASA volunteers. We all know that right now within Child Protective Services, they have multiple levels of new programs that they call transformation that they're trying to fix that system. So let's flash forward to the year 2040, and let's just pretend that the Child Protective Services system is now a high-functioning organization. Even in 2040, there will be a need for a CASA volunteer for every child. Why do I say that? Because the executive director, or I should say the commissioner of Child Protective Services, John Spicia, and everybody else knows the state was never meant to be a parent. The state has a job. The state's job is to leverage the taxpayer dollar. Well, we're all taxpayers, so we want them to leverage our dollars. In leveraging our dollars, the state will never have one caseworker for every child. The state will always require caseworkers to have case loads, which means that a child will have needs overlooked because this person's carrying a case load. The CASA is the one who has that child or set of siblings. They're the only ones there who can do that. So even in that future that we hope we see where Child Protective Services is hitting on all cylinders, If that great day ever